Okay.
Okay. Happy Thursday, everybody. I hope you all had a good week and Super Bowl. You're over the Super Bowl now. Got that out of the way for this year. I've never missed one in my life. That tells you how old I am.
This one was a little
Um,
bit of a sleeper.
yeah,
Yeah.
could have been better.
Yeah.
But anyways, I didn't have any skin in that game. I wasn't a, didn't have a favorite.
Yeah.
But anyways, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Of course, we have our special guest, who's somebody that I've followed for some time, is Scott Hawley from Torrin Winery. And I'll tell you, I was just telling Scott before, I really became interested in Torrin when I had read a couple articles back in the early 2000 or 2010 around then, and I started following. He was getting some big scores, and I followed it, and then he had this, and I think that was the first vintage, maybe not. I might have got the 98 pointer, but before, but he his Akasha was widely the Syrah, 100% Syrah, widely acclaimed, and consistently receives great rate reviews as well, year over year over year. And it is your the cornerstone of the winery for the most part, right? Your anchor
It
wine,
was, yeah, it was definitely one of the wines that got us here for sure.
right?
Yeah.
So I've been a member. I have met Cyril before, who was here. Thank you, Cyril, for setting this up. Um, I've met your wife before. I've talked to her on the phone, ordered some wine, and it's all been good. And I remember a few years ago, to show you how gracious, Scott was out working by the crush pad, and I had taken a group for the party. Before the party, I took them up there to maybe four, five, six people, and said I was wondering if Scott could just say something to the group. And he spent like 30 minutes of his time when clearly he was busy, and everybody was so impressed, and I appreciated that and never forgot that. But so what I'm going to do is Jason's not here tonight. He has a his wife's birthday, so he's
Oh,
off.
well, happy birthday. Yeah.
Yeah. So happy birthday, Sherry. Anyways, I just want to kick it off and ask Scott to give us a brief overview of how he started or got into winery. Some of it, some people know the story,
Mhm.
and many don't. And just give us kind of the journey from Fresno State to where you are now.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Mike, one thing that I have a tendency to do is short questions get really, really long answers. So if I tend to drag on or something, don't hesitate to cut me off here for sure.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, so I graduated from Fresno State in '97 after having been in school for 7 years. So when I started college, I was actually a business major and was absolutely terrible at it. And thank God my wife is a pretty decent business mind, or we probably would have gone bankrupt a long time ago. Um, but I saw, I got about 3 years into the program, and I realized, man, I just didn't want to spend my life doing something that I didn't, look forward to every day, right? So I had been looking at the enology program at Fresno State, and to be completely honest, when I started school at that point in my life, I didn't want to work that hard, academically. I didn't want to do all the chemistry and microbiology and all the crazy things that go with it. It's like pre-med, it's ridiculous. And so I kind of opted not to go that route for a while. And I got about a year, it's about a semester, honestly, about away from graduating. And I thought, man, if I don't see what this enology thing's about, I'm going to kick myself. So, Fresno State has a commercially bonded winery on campus. That's part of the curriculum there. You're literally making wine. So they have a production class in the fall. And I said, all right, I'll sign up for the class. We'll go. We'll see what it's all about. And, the first day of class, you roll in and they give you a pair of rubber boots and they're bringing grapes in and you physically start getting dirty like a harvest anywhere. and the smell of the barrel room and everything about that whole process was just fascinating. And so um, the next semester was spring, and over spring break, there's a 1 unit class that you take over spring break, and you're basically at the mercy of the program where you go on sort of a glorified field trip, right? And the year that I went, it was up to Russian River and Dry Creek and Alexander Valley up in Sonoma County. And I had never been. At that point in my life, I'd never been up there. So we go up there over spring break, and I was just blown away by how beautiful it was. I remember in particular one visit to Rokioli, and we're walking through the cellar, and we're looking out at the vineyards over the Russian River, um, and Tom Rokioli and his dog, Springer Spaniel. I remember that. And I thought, man, this guy gets to do this every day. This is this guy's life. And so I went back to school and I changed my major, and I was in school for 3 more years and got an enology degree, and never looked back. It was crazy. Yeah.
Was was there a wine that really got your attention early on? Something you had while you were on that trip that wow, this is
Yeah.
extraordinary. But you weren't
Yeah.
much of a wine drinker either. You didn't weren't much of a wine drinker at all before that.
No, not at that. No, no, not that. I didn't grow up with it in my family, or it wasn't something that was really on the radar for me, other than small exposure through friends and stuff through college. So I kind of got started once I joined the enology program. We would do these. We call them options, right? We would go and we do these blind tastings. Basically, everybody brings a bag, a wine in a bag, and we go through and discuss, regions and where we thought things came from and all this kind of stuff. Really kind of got me into wine at that point. But, sort of on that trip up to Sonoma County, because we covered so much ground, we did go to places where it wasn't just Pinot and Chard. Although I got to say the Rochioli Pinot Noirs were pretty amazing. But we also went to like Raffinelli. We're drinking old Zinfandels from Raffinelli at the time. Some places like that were pretty incredible. And
I've been there,
um,
yeah. Good place.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty amazing. And really just kind of seeing the difference in what grows. Because we covered some microclimates. We go from Alexander Valley, a little bit warmer, into Dry Creek, warm area up there with a little bit of Rhone varietals up there and a lot of Zinfandel and things. And then we, in a really short distance, you get to the Russian River area. It's considerably cooler in Pinots and Chard. And it just, the whole thing was just, an opportunity to just uptake as much information as possible. And I sort of kept that mindset, to this day, as I try to just receive as much information as possible. So, yeah.
So, what you started off at Fetzer was your first like was it internship at what you call it would call it,
Yeah,
correct?
initially. Yeah. So I started with an internship there. And then they offered me a position. And so I went back after I graduated and actually worked for Fetzer. Um, Fantastic opportunity. At the time I was interviewing at little places all over Napa and different spots where, people were, that had really made a name for themselves off of making single wines, generally Cabernet Sauvignon. And Fetzer was really interesting to me in the fact that they did everything. Obviously it was on a huge scale, but at the time they were farming over 1,000 acres organically. They were farming a couple hundred acres biodynamically back in the late '90s. Really progressive with their environmental commitment and the footprint that they were making or trying to minimize, actually. And you didn't see all the stuff that they did. They were working with, Bien Nacido Pinot Noir. They were doing McDowell Valley Syrah, some of the oldest Syrah in the state. Um, we were doing Russian River Pinots and Gewurz. I remember we were actually dry barrel fermenting, finishing dry. Alsatian clones of Gewürztraminer. These just things that people didn't see. You kind of see the grocery store stuff, but you didn't see all of the amazing stuff that they were sort of doing behind the scenes. And, kind of sort of, building off of that experience going through school and going through kind of initial exposure to wine. Like I said, I wanted to learn as much as I could. And I figured at a place like Fetzer, one, you're going to learn a lot about a lot of different things. You're going to learn a lot of maybe things that you do want to do, but you're also going to learn a lot of the things that you don't want to do. So having an opportunity to work at a big place like that really was eye-opening for me. And the learning curve was incredibly steep. So honestly, probably about the best decision I think I could have made at that time was going to work for Fetzer. Amazing family. The company at the time, Brown Forman, had actually purchased, Fetzer from the Fetzer family, but they were really hands off, and the whole management team, and the winemaking team there was really incredible. And we had relations with people all over the world. So we would travel the world and do these things called winemaker summits, where we would get together with numbers of winemakers from all over the world, and we would talk about, we'd walk vineyards and we'd talk winemaking, we'd taste barrels, and we do these things with literally some of the, premier winemakers in each of the regions. And, those things, I don't know if I would have gotten those opportunities to do that had I not worked for Fetzer at the time. So, yeah.
Do you have anyone you identify as a mentor?
Yeah, there's a handful for sure. Um, it's kind of interesting because in the last 20 years or so, I really do try to keep a lot of stuff. I like to do it myself, right? I don't like to bring people in for blending or these types of things, just because I take a lot of personal attachment, to the products and things. But um, everybody leading up to this phase has been so incredibly kind and generous, and with information. Obviously the link that kind of got me here to Paso Robles was Pebble Smith. So James Berry, he was the grower relations rep for Fetzer at the time. So when we would come down here to look at fruit, he was the guy that would show us around. And we'd end up kind of back at his little home winemaking garage, basically, where he was making the driveway. And these are fantastic wines. And he really introduced me to not only sort of the east side of Paso and some of the bigger vineyards that we were working with Fetzer, but really some of the diversity and the microclimates and the soil profiles and all these really amazing things that existed back here in the hills of Paso that I didn't even know at the time. So Pebble definitely was big in getting me here. Obviously, Dennis Martin and Bob Blue up at the Fetzer, Bob Blue with the Bonterra program. Really just paid a lot of attention to what these guys did. Incredible palates, tasting unbelievable amounts of wine. And then, from overseas, working with, I was fortunate to work with a guy named Jeff Merrill in Australia. And there was a brand called Lucien Lemoyne and in Burgundy that I really paid attention to. Munier Salma was the winemaker there, and learned a lot about Chardonnay and Pinot Noir from him. Um, Learned a lot about Sauvignon Blanc from a gentleman named Alvaro Espinoza in Chile. So really pretty amazing. And then, obviously since then I've been fortunate to have a lot of people like locally, Stefan at L'Aventure, John Albin, of course, different people in the Justin Smith and Eric Jensen and Chris Cherry, the list goes on to just friends and neighbors that, you get to see what everybody's doing. And we're such a cooperative group here. You can't help but be inspired by your friends and neighbors around you. So.
Well, uh, there's a lot to be said about you as being a mentor to many winemakers there too. You've been involved in many projects, either as a consultant or a winemaker. Pretty impressive list of people that you've helped improve what they're doing. And Law was after Torrin. Were you working? Were you winemaker at Law when you Torrin was? You didn't have a tasting room yet,
We
or
didn't have a tasting room yet. We were already a brand. We started in
right,
'06,
right.
and Law started with their first vintage in 2010. But we didn't have a tasting room until 2018 when we opened the one we're in now officially. So, yeah.
Yeah. So some of the people that
Mhm.
you and Nick Elliott,
Yeah.
you and Nick, you mentored Nick. Nick,
Yeah.
you were Nick took over your old tasting room, correct?
He did. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Nick's amazing, man. The guy, he makes amazing wines. I met Nick when we bought our first property on Anderson Road. We had the vineyard, but we needed to put a house on there. So we literally put a double wide modular home on this property. And my father-in-law and myself and Nick out there with shovels digging trenches for water lines and all this stuff. I don't even know how I met Nick. Somebody recommended him. And I think he might have been 21 at the time, maybe. And this kid was one, he was the nicest guy out there, but he worked so hard and he was so eager. Um, and it just made a really big impression. So when I started all the consulting and I needed some help, with winery activities and different things. And so he ended up coming and working with me, on my consulting projects, as sort of just kind of a sponge, just sort of out there learning everything and helping me do whatever I needed done. And, super talented guy. And I mean, the fact, seeing what he has accomplished and going through and tasting his wines to this day, I'm just so blown away by knowing him at that age and seeing what he's become. And I think in a lot of ways, it kind of reminded me maybe of where I started and, sort of the route that I took with really not necessarily knowing that this is where I was going to end up, but just sometimes things click. So yeah, Nick's great.
But one of the things that I've always done is I follow kind of the breadcrumbs or the family tree. And
Yeah.
so you and Nick are associated. So
Mhm.
you're working with Nick. Now I have to go to
Mhm.
I have to go to Nicora.
Yeah.
And of course, that never disappoints either. And
Yeah.
he does a great job. And you had I forgot what the other people you worked with Alta Colina somewhat. And
Yep.
what were some of the other ones you were involved with?
So at the time when I bought the property on Anderson Road, I was the winemaker for Summerwood. So I had left Fetzer in after the 2000 harvest, and started with Summerwood in 2001 through the 2005 vintage there.
Mhm.
And it was a great company. We had a great just I got a chance to work with a ton of really good fruit. We were using Jamesberry fruit and Booker fruit and Halter Ranch and Denner fruit and all these things. And when I purchased the property and considered starting my own label, it wasn't going to work out for me to continue being their winemaker there. So I started consulting, and my first clients were actually was Jada, Jack Messina at Jada, and then picked up Carl Bowker's Caliza brand, and Alta Colina and Law. Those were sort of the staples there, and then just different little projects. Really more of like a kind of a little bit of advice here and there. But with those particular projects, they were each projects that were startups, people that had been successful in other parts of their lives, looking at getting into winemaking and needing just a little bit of guidance, people that wanted to do it themselves, but just needed a little bit of, I guess, mentorship at that point. And man, what a great opportunity to work with these fantastic vineyards and super amazing people. And it's really fantastic to see how well they're all doing now. So
Right.
and being able to take whatever input I was able to give them at the time and build on that and create their own brands and their own identities, and really some pretty fantastic stuff. And every time I you know see a headline pop up or whatever, look at some scores or some reviews or articles or whatever, and I see these guys' names in there, man, it makes me super proud to have been a part of any of that stuff from the beginning. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the first time I went to law, you were the winemaker,
Hmm.
and and I don't know, remember when that is exactly, but then, well, mostly because I was following your legend to some degree, and then Philip, you
Yeah.
transitioned over to Philip,
Yep.
and he's done a fantastic job there.
Yeah, super
So,
talented guy. Philip's
yeah,
awesome.
really, yeah, the wine
Hmm.
is really, really special there. So,
Hmm.
um, let me, what in the winery right now?
Hmm.
Um, I had a question like, are your kids involved in it? Are they gonna pick up the ball and run with it or?
I, we'll see, right? So my kids are old, or they're old. I'm old. My kids are getting older. I have a junior in college, with Reese. He's up at Sonoma State, and then I have a freshman in college at Oregon State with Gage. And Reese, when he started college, he was a psychology major, and it's kind of funny because when he was a kid, both of the kids with like they went to Montessori school when they were little, so pulling them out of school is no big deal. And whenever we had harvest, they would come in and they get their little buck sandbox and their Crayola scissors and all of these things, and they'd follow the crews up and down the rows and harvest whatever was left over. And man, they loved it, right? And they'd sit on the forklift with me in the winery when I was moving barrels and stuff around, standing on the shaker tables, sorting fruit as little kids would, right? And then they sort of got into their teenage years and wanted nothing to do with it. Just figured, yeah, parents are parents, and what they do isn't necessarily what they wanted to do. So I kind of got away from it for a while. I'd force them to come down and do some punch downs and things with me during harvest occasionally. But then when Reese went to college, he was a psychology major. He comes back during the summer and he goes to work for Booker, right? So he's doing, yeah. So he's so he's like a bar backer. He's washing glasses and filling up water glasses and stuff. He's not old enough to pour wines yet. But he grew up on that property. We had 30 acres of that property was where basically Reese and Gage grew up for the most part. And so he had a connection to the place, and Booker's fantastic, right? The wines are great. The energy there is great. There's a lot of younger people. And Reese came back and he's like, Dad, did you know that young people actually like wine? Like he was fascinated by this whole concept, right? And and they got Cal Poly students there, and I think it really kind of opened his eyes that it's not just something his parents did, and he would be sitting there and it would come up in conversation that we were Torrin, and people are like, oh, I love Torrin. And so he comes back as saying, hey, mom and dad, people actually like what you do. And so it was, I think it was really kind of a wake up call for him that it really is a pretty fantastic business to be a part of. So he went back to school and he changed his major. So he's a marketing major with a wine business emphasis, something like that. So there is a chance that he probably, or let's call it a pretty high likelihood that he ends up in the business in some level. And hopefully we have built something by the time he's ready that if he wants to be a part of this, then that's great. But
Great.
never, definitely something, nothing I was going to force them to be a part of or like overly encourage them. I really want them to just go out and be, whatever it is that makes them them. I think that that's the important part. Um, and we'll see if they bring it back here. Gage is a environmental science major, and he's always been fascinated with the outdoors and the dirt and just so who knows? Yeah, maybe they'll both end up back here at some point. We'll see.
Give us if you could, tell us where the name Torrin came from.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny is we're actually naming. I think we're going back and forth of this. I'm pretty sure. I think we're actually naming Gage because we Reese was born in '05. '06 was our first vintage, and between the harvest of '06 and the time we were looking at labeling and bottling, we were coming up with a name. And Viquel was pregnant with Gage in '07. So those baby name books with like 20,000 baby names or whatever it is? Yeah. So we were going through there. We got all the way to T, and we were going through and we saw Torrin in there. And at least the definition or the meaning that they give in the baby name book was it's a Gaelic word and it means of the hills. And it was so applicable to, our little property on Anderson Road. We had 10 acres of vines on every aspect, north, south, east, west. And really the hillsides on the west side of Paso back here are just so magical and special. That's what we do. It makes us all look good. But so the word really, really fit kind of the mindset and what we were doing here and the source of all the fruit and what makes this all possible. So yeah, gotta have a baby name book. Yeah.
What? So you had the 30 acres over in Anderson.
Yes.
Then you purchased the property where you're at now, and how many acres do you have there that are estate would be considered estate?
So we basically replaced the 10 we had on Anderson Road. So um, the property there was 30 acres, 10
Oh
acres
yeah, sorry,
planted.
got it.
Yeah. This property is actually 70 acres, but only 10 acres are planted here as well. Unfortunately, we couldn't quite swing owning both properties. So we sold the old property back to Eric and Lisa at Booker to be able to buy this property. But where we were over there, we were landlocked. We had an easement through Booker's property, and we couldn't build a winery, and we're just kind of stuck back there. So this property really gave us an opportunity to kind of spread our wings, put our own winery here, and get our tasting room open, and so we were able to plant 10 of the acres here. We didn't want to, be invasive in the property. The planting that we've done here was acreage that was already cleared when we bought the property. At one point, it was walnuts, and the previous owner had ripped those out, so it was just kind of some barley and things out here on the hillsides. And then everything above that, once you kind of get above the planted portion, it's all forested and really, really steep and rocky. And then our house actually sits up at the very top of the property. So it was just a great opportunity. The soil is amazing. We're this really fantastic sort of band. The property starts at about 1,350 feet elevation and goes up to about 1,600. And most of the fruit is sort of in that like 14 to 1,500 foot range. And it's this really beautiful mix of this calcareous shale with a little bit more topsoil than we had on Anderson Road. And so it's kind of like that sweet spot band of Burgundy, sort of right in the middle, just obviously warmer, but we're excited to see what we get out of here. It's gonna be fun. Yeah.
So you touched on something there that uh, you only have 10 acres planted, but there was something that stuck with me a long time ago. And I
Hmm.
think you had said it when we were there, or I had read it. And you really pretty much stick, and I verified looking at your current lineup,
Yeah.
2,500 cases is pretty much your sweet spot. Is that correct? So you're not interested in making 5,000 cases of wine, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the goal. Right now 2,500 is a bit low. Like ideally, I think our number's about 3,000,
Okay.
somewhere 3,000, 3,200. Mother Nature is what it is, and when we're limited to a certain amount of acreage, sometimes she under delivers as far as quantity goes, and so we'll end up with a couple of vintages that might hover around that 23, 2,400 case range. But ideally, if all works out well, we'd be about 3,000, and we don't get that from all the 10 acres, right? So it takes for us to get those 3,000 cases, we need somewhere between 25 and 30 acres with our yields. So everything else, we work with some pretty fantastic growers that we've had long-term relationships with, and some more planting contracts, and pretty much everything we've done by the acre. So we really are pretty instrumental in the farming aspect of it. So
Yeah, I think what
mhm,
I had read or you had said one time is pretty
mhm.
much that's where quality control, that's the range where the quality control. And you just told us a moment ago, you like to do everything yourself.
Yeah,
Once you see wineries that get larger,
yeah,
not to slam that, but
hmm
they need more people on it. And not one person, it's the right amount for you to be able to give us the quality that you've promised and you've been delivering for over a decade now,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I think that's to be applauded. I kind of use that as a measurement now against, unfortunately, good or bad. I use it as a
Yeah.
bit of a barometer, but I learned so much reading about how you approach making wine and how the quality matters, first, and which will bring me to a question that
Okay.
somebody had said.
All right.
So,
That's good.
and I, because in the group we get a lot of questions, and a lot
Okay.
of it has to do with some of the escalating prices of bottles of wine.
Sure.
And so I do a little bit of math, and I'm going, well, you're going to do 33,000 cases, and you need X amount of dollars to go. But I had somebody tell me that they were with a group there, and you had said, like, if I hadn't elevated my process, my winery to a premium label, I'm not sure I'd still be in businesses. Now, that's not a quote unquote, but maybe you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
e- educate us because I don't think people understand enough about, especially in these times right now where it's a little it's more crunched because
Yeah.
lack of new wine drinkers and the old ones like me are dying off and
No,
but
I
anyways,
think
go
you're gonna be
ahead.
here a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a really interesting, it's kind of funny when we started, our first release was 283 cases. And it's taken us almost 20, well, we're on our 20th, we're 20 years old here at this point, but, we've been at 2,500 cases or so for the last few years, but it took us a lot of time, to get from that small, like I said, 283 cases up to this point. And, we were really adamant about keeping the quality, where I was happy with it. I was very committed to the fact that we were only going to bottle wines that I would be happy with and proud of, and want to put in front of people because it's a direct reflection of all this time and energy in my family and what we've done, and all that's so super important to me. Um, in order to do that, you have to work with the best product, right? I mean, so it's really it's impossible. I don't say it's possible, but it's very difficult to make really outstanding products, or outstanding wines from average product, inputs, right? Your grapes and all the materials that go into it. And as a lot of people have seen in the area, if you're looking at homes or whatever it is, the area has gotten incredibly expensive, and just the whole process, everything behind it, has gotten incredibly expensive. And I would say, one of the reasons that honestly, the only reason that we're able to do what we do is because we're, of all you guys, everybody listening to this thing and people buying the wines, um, is we sell them direct. We sell direct to consumer. We don't distribute our wines, and so we're not taking that hit on the distribution channels and all these things. So we're able to sell them at retail. If we sold them at wholesale, we would have been bankrupt years ago. There's no way we could have been able to sell this little of amount of wine at that price point, because our cost of goods is so high. And so our margins aren't great, right? Like, if we have our at our 24 2,500 case, production years, we break even. right? So we don't make any money on those years, right? So when we get up to that 27, 2,800 case to 3,000 case years, then we actually make a little bit of money on those years. And so our goal has been to sort of take the productive years and try to help balance those years out. You know, one of the big things is this is all we've ever done. You know, I got out of college and Viquel and I, neither one of us had any money. You know, it's amazing that we've ever made it this far. It's kind of insane. All kinds of little stories on how that happened, I guess. But we don't have necessarily like a fallback career. You know, we weren't successful in other businesses when we got into these things, and so how we've managed to purchase properties and build wineries and all this kind of stuff. Honestly, in a lot of ways, I still don't know how it was possible, right? And so with that comes, you know, debt, lots of things that you're taking care of. So, you know, when you go to Europe and you see these amazing wines that have been in families for centuries, you know, and handed down from generation to generation, I think there's a different level of sort of financial commitment to get in to start the brand in the first place. And so when you kind of weather all of these things, it's a challenging business to make money at. But once you sort of hit that level, I guess, and you can kind of hit a plateau where you're not absorbing too much growth, it is possible to make money. But I never got into this thing to be wealthy. I got into this to be happy. And if that's my measure of success, man, this is over delivered, you know, because I've managed to live an incredibly blessed, you know, last 20 plus year, 25 years, you know, with my wife and being a part of this business. It's been pretty incredible. So yeah, you know, as far as just sort of, you know, talking price points and all these things, but I tell you, if if I could do it, I'd give it away. You know, I mean, like the goal for me is to have bottles in front of people and have them sharing them with their friends and just feeling good about being a part of this, you know, link in this 8,000 year chain of making wine that we get this little window to be a participant. But for us to stay sustainable, you know, we haven't been able to raise our price. So we started in 2006 at $65, right? So which is high back in 2006, but now we're at $105 for our current release. So it's, you know, $40 over 20 years. So it's about a $2 a bottle increase over the last 20 years on our price point. Um, and everything else has gone up a lot more. So it's a challenging business for sure, but we just have to be responsible and, you know, I don't know if this is answering your question, if I'm beating around the bush here, but
No.
yeah,
That's a good
yeah,
answer. I mean,
yeah,
I just think that people need to have an understanding of how
hmm,
challenging it is. And
yeah,
I happen to know that you have a perspective about it, and I was interested in talking to you about it.
yeah.
To me, I have two passions. I love music and I love
Mhm.
wine.
Okay.
And the one thing I like to do is support both. I don't like taking free, free music. I like to pay for it so that the musician will keep continuing
Mhm.
to doing what he's doing. And I
Yeah.
want you to get paid. You need to eat, or you won't be able to make
Yeah.
any wine. And,
Yeah.
you're such a fantastic winemaker
Yeah.
that, of course, we all want you to succeed.
Well,
That
we appreciate that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then let's go to 2018. You opened a beautiful tasting room there, and
Yeah.
a little bit of something. So in 2018 or 19, we were up there when you first opened up. I was looking forward to it as a member, looking
Okay.
forward to visiting the new facility,
Hmm.
and then and talk about challenges. But then we weren't back there again until 22, but the
Okay.
pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And when we were there in 18 or 19, you had no patio.
Yeah. I
Then we
know.
come back,
Yeah.
and I realized when I saw emails from you and
Hmm.
things through other channels that you had built this huge. You were literally forced
Yeah.
to stay in business to open that patio, to build a patio that expense probably you weren't really had on your in your budget
Right.
to stay open. And
Yeah.
that's extraordinary. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful experience out there. I get it. It's a beautiful area in general, but explain some of that. That's
Yeah. It was crazy because you're absolutely right. So when we built the facility, we really hadn't intended to do a lot of tastings outside. We kind of set up the room. We have these roll up doors and these electric screens that come down to kind of make the interior sort of feel like a big breezeway. So it's almost like you're sitting outside. And then we had some landscaping and things outside, but it wasn't really intended, to really host a lot of our guests out there. Um, COVID rolled around and we couldn't do any indoor tasting. We couldn't do any tastings at all for a while. And then they opened it up to where we could do tastings outdoors. And we really weren't equipped to do it. And so we really scrambled. And luckily, we were able to source some furniture and we got these little fire pits. And the contractor we used for this, Ted Plemons, amazing guy. Um, we came in and we put those little walls in to sort of kind of make it feel a little cozier and all these things. But all of a sudden, this thing came together in a really short period of time. And I tell you, man, that has been the biggest blessing ever. We do a gob of tastings out there, and it's such a beautiful spot. At the time, the sycamores hadn't really grown up much, and now the sycamores have all grown in, and we have lots of shade, and it's beautiful out there. And so, something that we were sort of forced to jump into that we weren't quite prepared to do has actually panned out to be, probably one of our biggest assets here for hospitality side. So
Yeah, really, because you couldn't,
yeah.
you weren't really accommodating a lot of people at the same time in the tasting room per se,
Mm-hmm.
because you had a couple tables
Yeah.
and you were trying to control the experience, and I get
Mm-hmm.
that, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, either one, inside, outside, it's all great there.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
beautiful area. We're pretty blessed. Like last month, like I said, it was, all of January was 70 degrees. We were doing outside tastings all January. It was fantastic. And so,
right.
yeah.
So another thing that's always impressed me, and
Mhm.
something I complained to some winemakers about, but uh, I've always loved that you don't have too many labels.
Okay.
You have six
Yeah.
basic labels
Yeah.
in Lagom.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, and it's
Hmm.
always Lagom Pinot and Chardonnay. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
then the other five, those were added on. It was Banch. It was excuse me. It was Acacia, Maven, and Banch. No,
And Banshee, those were the three we
Banshee.
started with.
Those were the
Yeah.
three you started off with, and then
Yep.
you added La Devore,
Yeah.
Devore. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but
That's okay.
you added that on, and Seneschal and Tsundere.
Yeah. So in '06 we started with the Maven, the Banshee, and Akasha. In 2010, we introduced Sundere. And then in 2017, we introduced the Seneschal and the Les Devoirs. So, and then we, always, and for those of you that have been with us for a long time, we used, to do some vineyard designated things. We've done some Shadow Canyon and some James Berry and some Cruise Vineyard and different things like that over the years. We do little bottlings occasionally when those opportunities arise, but our core wines are the six that we release now. So that way we have three in the spring, three in the fall. The Chard and the Pinot really aren't part of those programs other than just they were really designed more for the tasting room because we like to drink them. And if people want to take them home or order them, then that's great. But that's not technically part of the, traditional lineup. And it's actually worked out really well for us. Yeah. We're really blessed to be in an area that does a lot of things well.
Well, I'm glad you didn't compromise and add a rosé in like everybody else either. So
Yeah.
sorry to those people that love rosé, but I
Yeah.
feel like it's like an add-on just for
Yeah.
whatever reason. But I understand it's a business. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I'm
no,
a fan of some rosé.
I like the simplicity of it because I know
Mhm.
what to expect out of those six bottles.
Yeah.
And basically, and I love the Lagom Pinot, and that comes
Yeah.
from
That
uh
was Biennacido and Solomon Hills.
right,
Yeah.
right. And it's
Yes.
always the same vineyard.
When we started originally, we also had Duvarita down in the Santa Rita Hills,
Hmm.
and that vineyard unfortunately wasn't doing well. And so it kind of migrated back up toward just the Santa Maria Valley with Biennacido and Solomon Hills. And then while I've got you all here, so those two vineyards, the Solomon Hills vineyard that we were dealing with, they ended up getting a bunch of disease issues in there that they ripped that out. And then the block we were getting from Biennacido was struggling. And so um, as of the 22 vintage, for the foreseeable future, we're actually taking a hiatus from Pinot Noir for a while. We're still doing the Chardonnay, but we're taking a little break from Pinot until we can find sourcing that I'm happy with that kind of keeps the spirit of that particular wine alive. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
So tell us something about the two spring releases you have. They're member only, of course, and I saw how little
Yeah.
was produced. The
Hmm.
TH, the Terry Hoag Vineyard,
Yeah.
and there's a story behind that. Why don't you
Yeah.
share that?
Yeah, so obviously, I'm sure most of you guys, whoever's listening here, is familiar. A lot of you are probably familiar with Terry Hoag and TH Estate. I've known Jen and Terry for years, and it's a fantastic site. And they've made brilliant wines over the, I don't know how 20 years that they were in the business. And they gracefully bowed out. They said it's time, and so they retired. And we were talking to Terry before they sold the property and trying to figure out, what the best situation was, whether it was going to be to try to purchase fruit. But we ended up leasing it. So Don Burns at Turtle Rock and us at Torrin, we basically went in 50-50 and we leased the TH estate, all the vineyard, for the 23 vintage. And philosophically, we did things a little different than TA or than Terry was doing things. And so modified some of the farming just a little bit. And it happened to be that 23 was such a fantastic year. Like all the wine was amazing and it's a great site. So as I'm coming through, I had just anticipated these were just going to be wines that were going to go into our other programs, the 6 wines we talked about. And, wherever the best fit was, then great. And going through, everything performed well that vintage. Like it was Syrah, Grenache, Mourvèdre. It didn't matter. It all did incredibly well. And so when we had talked about revisiting the idea of doing some vineyard designated wines, I thought, well, TH, this is great. One, we actually had, controlling interest in all the farming with the lease. And two, everything did so well. Historically speaking, most of them, some of the James Berrien things were blends, but the idea would be that it would be a single varietal, like the Moon Springs that we're going to do in the fall. But this one was perfect. That the Syrah, the Grenache, and Mourvèdre were all fantastic. So we actually did basically a third, a third, and a third split. So we have the label says 34% Mourvèdre just because it's a rounding issue. We needed to get to 100. So, but the all the wines did incredibly well. So we're super excited. It's really a fantastic year. The wine shows well. We actually are releasing it in the same time we release the Banshee, which is also, but that's a little more Mourvèdre driven. There's a higher percentage of Mourvèdre in that wine, and that wine's a little darker, a little more brooding. The TH is just incredibly elegant and graceful and balanced and round. It's really, really pretty. We're super excited to kind of relaunch this program, sort of the Vineyard Designate series with the TH. One, with the history we have with Jen and Terry personally, it's really good to kind of an homage to those guys and sort of a last farewell to them on them exiting the industry. But the being able to use that vineyard was great, and then being able to do it in such a fantastic vintage was pretty nice. So yeah, and there's a little labeling convention hitch to this too. So for the first time, we're introducing a completely different label for these wines, which is kind of fun. So
Oh, I see. Yeah.
yeah,
But the fruit over there is fantastic, right?
it
So,
really is.
yeah.
Yeah, they're in such a
That,
great
that I've
spot.
had, still have some bottles of TH in my cellar. And I think I had a bottle of, on Sunday, I opened a bottle of Phil Montag, his
Okay.
Iwi.
Yep,
I think
with
it
him and
came from
Cyril.
that vineyard.
Yep. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Like,
Fantastic
and I
stuff.
didn't really care for it when he gave me a taste of it because we had been out at drinking. And he just poured some for a bunch of friends of ours, and Laura and Patrick were there. But it when I drank it the other day, I went,
Yeah.
"Wow!"
Yeah.
I missed something that day, but I still bought some anyways because I could felt the potential.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's pretty.
go ahead.
Yeah, say with both him and Cyril having worked on that property and spent a lot of time with their hands in that dirt over there, they really they understand the place and they're super talented and the wines are great. I mean, I've had a chance to try all those wines, and they started with whites and they introduced some reds and all the wines across the board are fantastic. So it's really fun to see them doing well, and
Right.
certainly hoping wishing them well moving forward for sure. So.
Yeah. No, I wish him well. What's happening with that property? Do you know? Or
So trust, it's called trust now.
okay.
And there's a partnership involved, and I'm going to be embarrassed because my brain just slipped. I forgot the gentleman's name. But he worked with Booker, Kyle. Kyle at Booker came in, and with some other partners, they purchased it and started as their estate, and they're kind of remodeling the tasting room and things. And so, as far as I know, they're up and running. And yeah, I'm really excited to see where they go. So we don't get that fruit anymore. So we did get it for the 24 and 25 vintage. We got a little bit of fruit, and now moving forward for their needs as they grow, they're going to be keeping that fruit. So yeah, so it's in good hands. I think they're going to do good stuff over there. So.
What is your perception of the current business environment right now? Are you do you see a slowdown or people visiting, and are you experiencing that, or what's your take on all that? That's what we report. I read in the
Sure.
the page
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting because we get so much information thrown at us so quickly. I think back in the day, it took a while to get a lot of that information, and now we're kind of inundated with it so quickly. And I don't know if the rate at which we receive information affects people's purchasing habits or whatever it may be. We're lucky that we're sort of analog here, right? We're a little old school, and like I said, we do most of our stuff direct to or we do all of our sales direct to consumer, but a lot of it's through our sort of grandfathered allocation list and our wine club and those types of things. And so we have a pretty loyal following. So it sort of maybe took a little longer to sort of feel some of those impacts here because we don't, compete for shelf space and things like that. So that's a little different. We're in a little different segment of market, but saying that, we're not immune, right? We certainly are seeing people maybe cutting back a little bit on an order. We certainly have a, a big group of people that have pretty full cellars. And so it is important that we're continually reaching new people. And I think the fact that we do have a tasting room now where, for the first whatever 12 years or whatever it was, we didn't have that tasting room, being able to reach people face to face and tell the stories and share the wines, I think has been really helpful for us to make sure that we stay relevant moving forward. But with that, we have slow days just like everybody else. And we just released wines, and we've gotten a really positive feedback from that. So, each time we release, you cross your fingers and hope everybody's still on board. And we're pretty grateful that people have been really supportive and continue to support us over the years. And do the marketing for us. They share wines with their friends, and so we keep getting phone calls from people that are looking to become familiar with our wines. So we're certainly grateful for that. But yeah, I'd be lying if I said that we definitely didn't see some of the impact and feel that. And so we're very conscientious of that. So yeah.
Um, I'm going to let you talk about your current lineup, but I do have to share because Cyril wanted me to share this with everybody. So
Okay.
everybody that's on the broadcast right now, Torrin's offering for everybody here a free tasting for two. Um,
I didn't even know that.
breaking the news
That's
then.
great though. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I was just looking for the offer code. I wrote it down. I thought it was in his email, but you got to go to talk to make your reservation. So I'm going to give you I'm going to give you the I'm going to give you the offer code. Hold on, just I'm sorry. I thought I wrote it down.
Yeah.
Um, it is visit Torrin in all caps. Really original. There you go. But yeah, go to talk, make a reservation, especially you guys are going to the party on April 25th or on that weekend.
Mhm.
You might want to consider going there. It's a great experience. And
Yeah.
I told Cyril, expect a few of our people to show up because of the big gathering that'll happen that weekend. So, anyways, go over if you can, if you want to, go over your lineup and talk about your club and give us a little bit of presentation of what you're offering in the spring in particular. And if
Okay, great.
and if you're a member, what the
Yeah.
benefits are to getting some of those wines. Yeah.
I'm getting a little out of my depth here. Like, I make the wines. I don't know how to sell them, but I'll do my best. And Cyril can correct me where I'm wrong on this. Cyril and Tiffany and Viquel, but um, I'll talk about the wines first. So, with our spring release last year was a little bit of a little departure in the fact that for the first vintage ever, we didn't have a Maven. which is kind of crazy. I really missed that wine. So we're super excited that that's back in the lineup. The 23 Maven is incredible. Super excited to get Grenache in that. That's really Syrah kind of started us here. Grenache is definitely something that's been a bit of a carrot out there. That's one of the wines that I think when you really get it right, it's really a special wine. But it's definitely one of the hardest wines I think to make. So vintages like 23, where you get this nice cool year and this amazing fruit development and texture, weight and balance in those wines is pretty beautiful. So I'm super excited about that. The Banshee, again, Mourvèdre driven. I think it's about 43% Mourvèdre. Then just Syrah, Grenache, a little tiny bit of Graciano in the Banshee this year. Darker, more savory, earthy, a little spicier. Certainly the wine I would say that as we get a little time in bottle over the years, if there's ever a wine that I would say sort of migrates to a true sort of Southern Rhone, where it might get lost in a lineup with some import wines. I think the Banshee would probably be the wine in our lineup that would kind of fall into that category. So super excited to see that. And then Les Devois. So that's our Syrah-based wine with Graciano. Great to see that thing. That's really been a fun wine because obviously we needed to find, Graciano, that whole mistake from however many years ago, where everybody thought it was Mourvèdre and it went in the ground. It was actually Spanish Graciano. It was such a great grape. We didn't want to jump ship on it, but we needed to find a consistent home for it. And really, that was a lot of the inspiration for developing the Les Devois blend and the Seneschal blend as well. But we also get some Syrah that is just beautiful stuff. It's incredible, really peppery and savory and these, kind of amazing Syrah characteristics. But maybe the pH is a little high. And since we don't ever adjust our wines, we don't chemically change wines, we don't add acid, we don't do all these things that you can do. We really look for blending to create balance in wines. And so the Les Devois is really an opportunity for us to take these really beautiful components and make a wine that I think together kind of really outshines what they would have done on their own. So it's really still has the Syrah identity, with Graciano being the piece of the puzzle that kind of brings up the acid and really kind of creates sort of structure and balance and longevity to the wine. So yeah, so that's the core lineup. You did mention the TH. Unfortunately, that we did about 90 cases of that total. So we unfortunately can't offer that to everybody. So that is limited to our wine club members. And they're able to add that on or substitute bottles for that. But I know that there's already very little of that left with the release that went out. So
Right.
so we'll see how that goes. And yeah, that's the spring release there.
Can I let a fan that raised his hand here? He needs to jump off. Michael, go ahead.
Yes, that is true. I am a fanboy.
Hi, Michael.
No, I gotta hop off unfortunately, but I just want to say thank you, Mike. Or I'm sorry, Scott. Tonight,
Yeah.
this was amazing. I've learned so much from you, and your passion is inspiring and it's energizing. And I've just learned so much. I'm drinking your Lagom tonight. It's the
Okay.
21
Nice.
Chardonnay. So well balanced, super. It's just the fruit forward, the acidity is, you don't add any acid, but the acidity is like cleanses the palate. I'm eating it with some pistachios, and it's just the perfect little pairing. So I just want to say thank you, cheers, and wish you all the best.
Well, cheers, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here tonight and supporting us. And we love that shard, man. It's fun. That catches people off guard. So it's always fun to see that in somebody's hand. But we really do appreciate the support and everybody here taking the time to listen to what we have to say. And we've always said, as much as we try to sell wine, we try to sell connections and try to make relations with people and tell the story. And we're very grateful that people have caught on to Paso and to our neighbors and to us. And so thank you very much. And
My
cheers
pleasure.
and best to you.
Here's
Thank
to
you.
you. Likewise.
Yeah.
Take care.
Hey, Michael, thanks for joining this and come back sometime.
I'll look forward to it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, we'll open it up for some questions. I see Dave Guido. You got a question or no? He didn't have a question. Matt Valenzuela had a question, right, Matt? No?
No, I was
Okay.
just clapping.
Oh, got it. All right.
We'll take that. Applause is welcome.
See, I'm the one that's supposed to control that while Jason's talking. Like I'm doing multitasking.
Exactly. You're lost without him here, man.
John Lazaro.
Yeah.
You have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Scott. We're in St. Louis, Missouri. We're coming out at the end of April to be with the group.
Nice.
Looking forward to hopefully seeing you there. you're never supposed to pick your favorite kid, right?
That's right.
But when you go to your cellar and you're thinking, hey, I want my comfort zone or that warm fuzzy,
Yeah.
which of your wines do you go for?
Well, it's kind of funny. We get this question a lot, and it's so. I feel like I'm chickening out every time. Like people just want like a straight answer, and it's impossible to give. I'm telling you, like compared to your kid thing is true, but I think that each vintage, right, vintage to vintage, Mother Nature, thankfully, because that's what keeps it interesting, gives us variables, right? And so, one particular vintage, maybe one wine stands out to me versus another wine. As we started with, early in the conversation here, Akasha with the Syrah really, I got to admit, I got a sweet spot for Syrah, or a soft spot for Syrah, right? I think just year in and year out consistently, Syrah is just such a fantastic grape here on the west side of Paso. It just does so well. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's my favorite wine all the time, And so each vintage, depending on what Mother Nature gave us, I think sometimes the wines manifest themselves differently. And then you have them like your kid, right? Sometimes maybe when my kids are like 5 or 6, one of them was not my favorite. That's why I'm going to say it. And then a couple years later, man, maybe they're struggling a little bit, So and so as you kind of see the wines develop, I think that they really evolve, and I couldn't pick one, I'm telling you, but
well, you passed the test. You gave the right answer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, nobody does that. So
Yeah.
it was kind of a rhetorical question. We just broke our first out of, I don't know how many, 5 vintages now.
Okay.
Torrin, that we've been saving it. 18 Banshee.
Nice.
I think Lara and Patrick are drinking it as well. And it's phenomenal. Thank you very much for what you're doing.
It's phenomenal.
My pleasure, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate the Banshee. We just did a big vertical tasting of the Banshee, where we went through and tasted a bunch of old vintages. And I went back all the way and I tried all the way to 06. And so 20 years old, going on 20 this year, and the wine was still fantastic. And it's really fun to see these things evolve and develop. And, when we put them in bottle, we hopefully put them in a fashion. If somebody happens to drink them in the first couple of years, great. If you happen to lose a bottle in the cellar for 5 or 10 or whatever, you're going to come back and be rewarded. So coming back to an 18 now, that thing's probably in a pretty good spot. So I appreciate you holding on to it and opening it tonight, man. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Slow roll. We'll see you. Thanks.
All right. Take care.
Hey, thanks, John. And look forward to seeing you at the party. Patrick and Laura.
So, Scott, I love the fact that you put out the the aging windows, and I hate the fact that you put out the aging windows.
Yeah.
Because this one over here is like, what the hell? You touching the 19? Don't touch the 19. Oh, God damn, what the hell are you doing? You have no idea the arguments. We don't argue very much. But there are times that this is like, don't you dare even, though the Scott said, don't touch it. You can touch this, but got that. So thank you. But I really, really appreciate how you pull that together and let us educate ourselves. We have absolutely enjoyed your wines. I love the Chardonnays. It's one of my favorite Chardonnays of all time. And
well, thank you.
We have nothing left in our cellar because I keep drinking it and I enjoy it too damn much.
Well, I'm sure they got plenty more.
Yeah,
and
it's kind of funny.
We turned them on to Paso.
No, it's their fault.
It's our fault.
No, John, there we go.
John's the one who brought us to Torrin originally on our very first trip to Paso.
Yeah,
I love it.
And so we've been members since that day. And
I tell you, we have the world's greatest marketing team. It's our whole consumer base that does our marketing for us. I love it.
No,
so we're super grateful. Thank you.
It's extremely true. It's extremely true.
Can I make a comment on top of that? I did make a posting, and I have to say I did the same thing last year with your tasting notes, because Epic had put, Jordan had put something up. That is the way you two winemakers put your notes up is exactly what I draws me in.
Okay.
There's a little bit of science in there, of course, and I'm not that great at it, but I like that. I like to know how long it's aged in a barrel, when it's bottled. I like to know all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the two of you, at least, and the example I use is this is what I see as an example of great tasting notes, and I know I used yours last year.
Well, thanks.
But and I think from the responses we got,
Mm.
everybody is impressed. And I should take yours and put yours up there too, in all fairness.
No.
But I haven't received them yet. Hold on. Are you there?
Yep, we're still here. Yeah.
Oh, I went
There you
black
go.
for a minute.
Hey, Mike, you just looked the best you've ever looked with no
Yeah.
screen on, man. That was great.
I mean, I went dark. But anyways, who else has a question? Anybody else have a question? Just open your mic and jump. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, Steve.
Well, we're on mute and she won't unmute. There we go. Gotta go now.
There we go.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So you're starting at the very beginning of your presentation. Your story about Fetzer is interesting to me because it's one of the first wines I was ever exposed to as an adolescent. And my mom knew a sales rep from Fetzer named Peter.
Okay.
And he would explain that, look, this winery is making all kinds of these different varietals that you don't normally find and stuff like that. And so that's where I got familiar with that. And so it's just an interesting story. How would you compare the Fetzer when you worked there and back then to what it is nowadays as far as how the wine is? Because now it's they've gotten bigger and
Yeah.
more, and they don't make as many different varietals as they used to. And that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Honestly, I'll do my best to explain that. Unfortunately, over years and time, and you get busy, and I'm maybe not quite qualified to commit too much on what they have going today. But just some conversations with some people I used to work with and things. But Fetzer back in the day, it didn't feel like much of a departure from a family-run business. Everybody involved still treated it like it was a family-run business. And so many people that were, the winemaker and the president of the company and all these things had worked with the family for decades before they ever sold. And so it really sort of had that it felt smaller than it was, oddly enough to say. Like, we did a bazillion cases of wine, but it felt smaller than it was. And it's kind of funny, when you say introduced to the Fetzer Gewürztraminer was one of the first wines that I thought was, aromatically was something that I was just really impressed with. It's like, man, this stuff smells so pretty and graceful, and you can buy it at, Target for $6. It was crazy.
Exactly.
And it was wild. And I tell you, there is no better smell than a cellar full of fermenting Gewürztraminer. It's crazy. But anyway, so that wine ended up becoming, I for the first time in years, I bought a bottle of Fetzer Gewürztraminer about 2 months ago because my son's girlfriend was trying to figure out, she wasn't really, into wine. She didn't really think she liked wine. And so I thought, if you're going to like any wine, it's, at this point in your sort of burgeoning wine, development here, you're going to like Fetzer Gewürztraminer. And sure enough, it was a hit. But as you kind of come into the new phase, I know that they have sold, actually. So Brown Forman, who owned Fetzer, sold to Concha y Toro out of Chile. And when I spoke last with Bob Blue, they kind of changed they changed a handful of things there, I guess. And I don't really know what their production levels are or how that's been affected. Excuse me, but I do know that they took the Bonterra label, which is the organic brand that they were working with, and sort of kind of renamed the home ranch there to the Bonterra Estates. So they're really focusing on the environmental aspect of it, the organics, and speaking with Bob, and they said it was really refreshing because Concha y Toro versus some of the other big wine companies who are more spirits based is really wine based. So it kind of took them back to their roots, with being sort of a wine centric company. And at least the last I heard, that it was really positive. They were really enjoying the company and the direction and, the liberty that they were giving with growing and their pursuit for environmental consciousness and these things. So as far as I know, they may not be as big of a presence as they once were, but I think what they are doing and how they're rebranding is really focusing on things that mean a lot. So yeah, I would expect them to see.
Well, That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because these things evolve, and I don't see much of their wines anymore. Of course, I'm more into way high end and small batch things, which now brings us to present day and the stuff you're making. How does one go about getting bottles of your wine?
Okay. You can reach out direct to us here at the wine. So where are you? I'm sorry. Where you calling us
Well,
from?
we're in Southern California. I'm down the road, 30 minutes from Mike, so.
Okay, great. Yeah. So that's an easy one. Yeah. So whenever you're in the neighborhood, please look us up, come by and see us first and foremost. We'd love to say hi and share. The whole reason we do this is to put glasses in front of people and, tell stories and stuff. So please come and see us. If that's not in the cards here in the near future, just call us here at the winery. And we can, we'll give you the options at that point. I think sort of the best case scenario to ensure that you have access to all the wines is probably through the wine club. If you're not a wine club person, we can figure out what wines are available and see if, see what we have available, and we'll make sure that we get you something for sure. So.
Well, we're members of quite a few wine clubs, Law being one of them. So it's interesting that you worked for Law as well. So I'm like, you're checking all the boxes here. You work for these guys that I like, and those guys, we're members of those guys. So very interested in trying your wines, especially knowing,
You mean I've never opened a bottle of Torrin when you've been here?
Maybe.
I beg to differ. I believe I have, but
okay.
Well, that was amongst many others, but anyway.
Amongst many others, exactly. At one of those bottle shares.
To visit in April.
Bottle share is a big deal with us, but anyway.
Hey,
I'll see if it's in any of the wines I
just don't remember which.
So, Steve, one of the things we always do, Laura and I, we have way too many wine clubs. Is we always are evaluating. It's like, what do we drop? What do we take? And everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody goes through this whole thing.
We are.
Scott, to yours. What you do is we drop Law because you're better than them. We've actually dropped Epic. I mean,
which I don't know.
That might feel bad.
I'm stressed about that one.
They're really good.
No, it's like literally, it's like we drink these, and it literally changes the emotions. The quality of what you do is next to none. I mean, you're at the top of the list. We have 15 wine clubs we're a member of now across from Napa and
15,
Paso.
okay.
Yeah,
We're
so
struggling
this
with
is
6.
It's our fault.
a problem.
It's our
we
fault.
have a very large, and it's all
We have
because
a
It's a
space
good problem to
problem.
have.
Let me go on the
Oh, yeah.
record. I
We
do
have a
like
space problem, too.
I do like Law a lot, but I do love Epic. I love what Jordan does.
it's a like versus Law versus
I
also
know.
the people.
Just want to go on the record. That's all.
Yes,
They're all fantastic.
The people is
Carl.
epic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So anyway, I just wanted to put that in there for you guys. 'Cause
All boats float on a rising tide.
yeah, there we go.
Okay. Again,
I was going to say.
Remember everything.
Oh,
but
sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead, Laura.
we'll
Hold
double
on.
check it.
Hold on. We got too many people talking. Who's going to talk?
Epic
Laura.
makes a Viognier that I'm like, even if we're not, I'm like, I gotta keep buying their Viognier.
We buy a case every year of that just because. I mean, Jordan, I love Jordan. She's amazing. So
She's amazing. She's super talented. I mean, she's an incredible winemaker.
her tasting notes with the pictures and everything else.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway,
We're here to talk about you, Scott, but anyway.
No,
I was
I'm
going to
sorry
say, yeah,
about my
no,
neighbors.
it's
Yeah.
not that. It was that, no, we have to make, all of us as
And he has the
consumers
fencer.
have to make hard choices all the time.
Well, it's
John has
like,
True.
Well,
which
let me
album, it's like music. It's like, which era of this band do I like better? You know? It's like,
Yeah.
head spinning. We can all argue about it for hours, but
Scott,
Mike,
did
do you have a
say
comment?
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask
Mike
Scott.
Williams?
Oh my God, look at that. Fetzer Gewürz from here.
What
Crazy.
was that?
Yeah,
Oh, look at
I just
that.
wanted to ask if Scott had a hand in this because we buy cases of this for my mother-in-law. It's the only thing she drinks. And, she loves it and it comes over every Sunday night for dinner. And she goes, "Where's my wine?" And
That is awesome.
It's this. So I just
I
thought
love
I'd
it.
hear that. And
It reminds
Oh my
her,
gosh.
my stepdad made wine from Ohio, so like northern Ohio wine, and this
Okay.
reminds her of that. And so we go through cases of that for her.
So funny. I love that.
My mother-in-law as well. There's something about little old ladies in Gewürztraminer.
I know. It's so fun. I mean, it's
easy to
irresistible,
drink.
you know?
it's
It's
a gateway wine for many
Yep.
people. And we always say, "Have you drunk this?"
That is
And
so
they're
funny.
like,
that
"What?"
you-
Gewurzel what?
It's called
Yeah.
Gewurz.
Honestly, I think if it was
Gewurz
easier to
from
say, I think even more people would
Ghost.
drink it.
I just call it Gewurz.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny? Fetzer, when I was making, because I actually made that wine for about 4 years. We made 250,000 cases of that wine. It was more. It was more Gewürztraminer than all the other producers of Gewürztraminer in California combined.
Oh,
No
yeah.
kidding.
Yeah, it was crazy. So it's really kind of fun to see that, all these years later, man, it's still, still sitting there on the counter. I love it.
It's,
So would you call that wine like ultra processed?
You'd be surprised, honestly.
No, I'm just saying to make 250,000 cases, that's like
No,
it's really
crazy. Yeah, you'd be
It's just
completely surprised.
so
Yeah,
good.
it comes in, it ferments really quickly because it's pretty low bricks, right? So it comes in, it's really aromatic, it's really pretty. You ferment it cold and clean, and the deal was it had to be ready for bottling and on the shelf by Thanksgiving. So we would harvest it in like early September, and it was on the shelf by Thanksgiving.
In where did they in stainless steel or
Stainless steel?
Yeah,
100% stainless steel. We did some barrel fermented Alsatian. That was a whole different reserve line, but that stuff was all stainless steel. And basically, it obviously finishes a little sweet. And to get that, they would spin the yeast out, so it ran through a big centrifuge. And that's how they got the fermentation to stop. And then you filter it, go to bottle, but it wasn't acidulated. And a lot of the fruit, at least at the time, came from Monterey County. And it was just pretty fantastic stuff. It was easy. Yeah. Beautiful dog in the back there. Yeah.
Irish setter. They're crazy.
Yeah. So
it
was funny.
She's a tough go. Anyway.
But it's good to see that. But real quick, just let me
go ahead.
Talking about all the other wine clubs and the wineries and all that stuff around here, man, we are super grateful that you guys support us and you guys support all of our neighbors. You support Paso in general. And, even at this time, just supporting the wine business in general, right? You hear all these horror stories of people not drinking wine and stuff anymore. And one of the great things that wine does is look at all of us sitting here talking to each other. Like, wine brings people together, and whether you're drinking our wine or Jordan's wine or Stefan's wine or whatever it is, I'm just glad to see everybody here with a glass in hand and keeping this whole thing alive for sure. So you guys are all doing your part for sure. And cheers to all of you. So thank you.
Yeah. We just had Stefan on in January. He was fascinating, of course,
Of course, I love Stefan.
I will say this, Scott, that the group is pretty much dedicated to the small producers, and Stefan still fits into that. But
absolutely.
we have to have some icons every now and then, like a Toby James or a Gary Eberly, and we've had all them on too.
For sure.
But I know it's getting late, so I just wanted, unless somebody has a compelling question to ask.
I've got one.
I got one. Oh, there we go. There you
go. Of course, I have a question or a comment in here. One of the things that we've really enjoyed over the time, and I know because you're keeping your production down limited, is some of the box wines and things like that. When you have an overproduction or something, have you ever thought about doing that? Booker did that, and that was $200, $300 for 3 liters.
200.
200. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah. I'm sorry, from our point of view, because it's like, I know it's going to be good shit when it's on there and the table on there and everything else like this.
Right.
Have you ever thought about changing the format a little bit for when you have, hey, I get more of this, let's just do this?
Yeah. Honestly, we haven't. Because we don't really bring in a lot of extra fruit, and occasionally we do have some stuff that doesn't make the cut. I just go through and I'm just like, the wines are fine, but it's just not quite to the standard we're looking for. We do sell that on the bulk market to other wineries and things. But we don't consistently have the sourcing, I guess, to sort of pursue that. And then I think we're probably not really equipped to figure out how to sell it if we did. You know what I mean? So, so I don't necessarily see us going that route in the near future. But man, I tell you, you never know what happens, right? Like you never want to say never, but I think, I don't know what we wouldn't really bring anything in. I think that would be a good candidate for a program like that. So unless we kind of switch gears in that regard, I don't think we'd see that in the near future, but I think it's great though. I know Topless Creek is doing it. And,
Well, Topless Creek has the kegs. I love
Yeah.
the kegs. I mean,
Mhm.
Karn, Andy over at Karn does the kegs, and I'm like, I'm ready to get one of his kegs on my kegerator now for a wine
That's
instead.
awesome.
I'm all happy.
Yeah. So definitely, more power to him. I think, like,
Are you
again,
kidding
anything that
me?
makes wines
Selling a
approachable.
keg of wine?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
they're selling kegs to the restaurants, right? Which
No,
is
libretto.
way better. Talk about sustainability and way better,
Love
right?
it.
Versus everybody opening all of these bottles and
Absolutely.
the cost of shipping and all that stuff for restaurants, it makes complete sense. But yeah,
Absolutely.
but even the 3 liter boxes. The problem is that we had it sitting out, and I was like,
Everybody
"Gosh,
had
it was
to get
going away." I'm like, "How did we go through this so fast?" His sister keeps coming over. She goes, "Oh, I just thought this was really cheap," and I said, "Well, okay, wasn't that? It wasn't. It wasn't on the bottom of the shelf at Walgreens." I said,
That's right. Yeah, that's throwing people for a curveball when they put such good wine in those boxes, right?
Yeah, I love it. Hey,
A
anyway,
quick,
it's one of our fantasies.
We should probably let Scott go.
Yes.
I'm going to say a couple of quick things here. Is that, Scott, I did read one thing. You were the 2016 ale winner at Firestone.
Oh yeah, the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, you still do that?
That's the only crown I've ever won. That's pretty. I wore that with pride. That was pretty awesome. Yeah. That was super fun, man.
Yeah, Scott's one of the highest award-winning winemakers. I think everybody should go there and at least give it a taste. But I love the wine. I do, and I love everything about the winery. So, with that being said, Scott, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You're somebody I've wanted to have on for a few years now, and I'm glad we got it put together. I tip my hat to Cyril, and we can't see him, but anyways, and I'll try to come and visit when we're up there in April. And
same here.
Hi, Cyril. How you doing? And
I'm thinking we're going to go on Monday, so this sounds pretty good.
Nice. Yeah.
Matt's going up.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have to have a group tasting in April.
Yeah.
I love it.
We're there
Possibly.
in April. We're there in April for them. John, Tay.
We're all there in April.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
good.
There's about 35 people down there and all at one time. Just
Take over the place. I love it.
take it over.
I told Cyril there was going to be 85 to 100 people coming to the party, and be careful what you wish for. But anyway,
Barrel samples. Barrel samples.
we're going to be at Carl's place, Scott. for the
Okay,
party.
good. Yeah.
Beautiful venue, beautiful setting for it. The
new place on the other side of Peachy from us. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's
So
perfect.
not far from you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, Scott, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And we'd love to have you back sometime.
Absolutely. Well, my pleasure, everybody. Thank you for having me. Honestly, it's an honor. 25,000 strong, man. Thank you for the work you're doing and representing the area and promoting the brands and like I said, our friends and neighbors in this whole thing in the industry as well. And we're grateful. We love what we do. We appreciate it. Like I said, it's been around a long time, and we just get this little window to be a part of it. And we wouldn't be able to do it if we didn't get to share with people at the end of the day. So here's to you guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for being a part of this.
At the end of the day,
Cheers.
Scott,
Yeah.
when you taste a glass of wine, you actually can taste the passion that the winemaker put into it. That's what I feel when I drink good wines. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, you guys. Cheers.
Have a great evening, Scott.
All right. You all do the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And the recording is off. Now we can talk real